Good afternoon. My name is Rosalind Newell, and I get to be your quilting correspondent today. And I am here with Wendy Mamattah, our expert quilter who's come in for a class. Wendy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been quilting since 2009 was when I just started to have this feeling that I needed a shift, in the kind of work I was doing to be able to go on to a whole new dimension of something new. Then the recession came along, so I lost my job, and at that point I just said, okay, I'm done, because I never really enjoyed the work I was doing. So then, again, a church mommy of mine, she said, I'll teach you how to quilt. So I went to her home and she taught me traditional quilting. And I didn't love that very much in the beginning, because right now I actually I've started traditional quilting, but I learned it, I found out how the sandwich was made, and then I just went back to her with what I wanted to do, and that was silhouette work in quilting.
Clearly.
Really, yeah.
Well, you've brought quite a few beautiful pieces for us today. Before we take a look at them, tell us a little bit more about silhouette quilting.
Well, silhouettes, first of all, silhouettes is timeless, really ageless, and 10, 20 years from now, these quilts will look like they were made yesterday. They don't really define an era. They just live for time. And I liked to work with this technique because I felt that I could express the African lifestyle in a way that I felt the world at large hadn't seen so much of. So I brought in like the things that make us happy in Africa, like dancing, cultural dancing.
Be sure to tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I'm from Ghana, West Africa.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and Ghana is on the West African coastline,
Thanks to Ancestry.com,
That's
lots of us know that we have a little Ghanaian blood.
Yeah, you have family in Ghana.
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
So why don't you brought some beautiful pieces today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this quilt and the inspiration and what you have going on here?
Okay, this quilt here that I have in front of us is called Celebration. And Celebration was created when the late Nancy Zeman invited me to her show, and she gave me specific instructions of the kind of quilt she wanted. And some of the things I noted were that she didn't want anything that had been seen prior to her program for the quilting world, and she wanted something new. So I really had to sit down and create this quilt Celebration for her appearance, for the appearance on her show. And this quilt is made with more like a mosaic technique. I work with several different styles of kente prints, and I cut from out of all of them and bring, fill them up in certain areas and bring them, just so that I could have a very popping effect of all those kind of strong fabrics coming together. And so this quilt kind of looks very gaudy, and that is the effect.
I wouldn't say gaudy.
You would say gaudy?
I wouldn't say gaudy.
What would you say?
I think it's bright and sparkling and energetic.
And energetic, that's true. Yeah, those words describe this quilt. And the inspirational story behind this quilt is when people who belong in Africa revisit Ghana, like President Obama, and people, celebrities who have often come from the States just because they had a connection with Africa and they wanted to be there. This is how we welcome them on the tarmacs of the airports just when they come out of the plane. And there's all this celebration and dancing, and the girls are topless, which is a cultural thing. It's nothing indecent. And this is just how they look. They have beads on their hip line. They have headbands that are really decorated, and we celebrate a lot in Ghana with in gold, because we
So
have.
I see you do have decorative stitching, and you've used metallic, particularly gold threads
To enhance it and enrich the work. I with the amount of time I had to be on that Nancy Zeman show, I did not have much time to do intricate beading. So I had to think of a quick technique I could use, and so I used embroidery stitches that are often used in African dresses for the necklines and all that, and I put them on the hip lines of the silhouettes with strips of kente under, because it all pops through the gold thread, and then I did that intense embroidery. So that's how I created it.
That's a great hint for our quilters at home.
That's right.
When they don't have time or maybe are not inclined to beading, that they can use thread in that kind of way.
They can use this technique, and it works so well.
That's a great tip. Tell
And
us a little bit about the quilt that's behind us.
Okay. The quilt that is behind us is Masai, and Masai people do not reside in Ghana, but as an African, you tend to stretch over to all the other parts of the
whole
continent.
continent.
That's right. So there was a time in East Africa, my dad went to do some work in Tanzania, and I happened to follow him. He went with me, and then I just got introduced to the Masai people. They hang around a lot around the game reserves and stuff like that, and their favorite color is red. But people have often asked me, why don't I see more red than anything? Because the Masai love red, but this is art, and so I took the idea, the inspiration, and made it my own. And so for me, just using kente, which is an African fabric that we celebrate with, was okay to also use it in the Masai quilt. And then
and you have really a representation of a lot of different fabrics there.
Right. And every fabric that I've used in there is, it's an African fabric. I only work with fabrics that come from Africa. And that's what I like to use in my work. And with the quilting industry at large, I also want to introduce, to our quilters how well they can work with kente and how to use it, because I really want them to embrace it, especially our African American, quilter sisters. I want them to know that they come from there. This is their fabric, and I want to teach them how best to use it, either in traditional quilting or in art, African-inspired art quilting.
Wow. Well, that really is great. There were so many good tips in it, I have to say. I enjoyed the class that you taught today.
Oh, thank you.
I think all of the quilters who participated really got a lot out of it, and particularly we enjoyed working with the silhouettes, but also with the African fabrics. And getting your tips.
I know, and I hope they keep in touch with me. I made sure everybody took my business card along, so that they can always reach out to me here and after if they have questions or they're stuck still doing it, because that often happens after you teach a class. And I just want them to feel free to contact me at any time, or even just call me, because we bonded beautifully, all of us, and I just want us to be in touch after this.
Great. Well, it means a lot. We had a teacher who was on Nancy Zeman, and I also understand with Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms, to have you here in Atlanta with us at the Atlanta Quilt Festival. The 2018 edition was quite an honor. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It was nice.